And we will call the meeting to order. The first item on our agenda is to receive and approve the minutes of our last meeting of August 8th.
We did want to note one correction on members present. The previous template hasn't been updated. Will be for next meeting. It's got Ron Wasson as Ward 1, and it should be Mr. Cunningham. So please note that change. And
okay. I would entertain a motion to approve the minutes of our last meeting. We have a motion. We have a second. All in favor? Aye. The ayes have it. Let us proceed. Our next item for consideration will be item A. And would you proceed, please?
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and committee members. The first item for your consideration is the Zone G Canal, Oklahoma River Canal Extension, which is north to southern terminus of the Bricktown Canal. And to fund this project, this is a 2007 bond project under Parks proposition. We are requesting fund from 2000 general obligation bond, which will come from control accounts in amount of $2,594,568.40. $359,953.75 will come in 2000 obligation unlisted funds, and allocation of $45,563.92 in 2000 obligation Parks interest funds. The total is $3,086,007. It is broken down into construction estimate of $2,724,000 and $724,286, and $275,800 is for the engineering and design, which is currently is being funded through MFA. This project is planned for 2012 bond sale, so once the bond is sold, then that money can be used, will be surplus, and will be used for other parks projects. I have asked Mr. Tim Johnson, the engineer of the project, to give you a brief presentation of the project.
Would you proceed, please?
Good afternoon. Tim Johnson with Johnson Associates. Pleasure to be here. Thanks for the invite. As Ahmad has talked about, this is a project that we've got a construction budget of about $2.5 million. The rest of that money would be used for testing and other items related to the construction. As you can see by the project location, it'll be connecting the south end of the canal to the north tip of the Zone G area of the river. Our goal is to utilize the existing bridge that was constructed under the railroad and the I-40 relocation a number of years ago. Go ahead. So this is the final connection being made through the existing bridge. It's been constructed as part of the I-40. Go ahead. The connection has to deal with a 19-foot vertical difference. The canal is 19 feet higher than the water surface of the river at normal. And the pedestrian connection will allow for the Bricktown Entertainment District to have a physical pedestrian connection as well as an opportunity to embark on a river cruise from a canal boat or vice versa. So these two elevation differences you can see are 19 vertical feet. As we walk through this, I'll point out some of the features on each end of the project, but you can see the connection. It's a little less than 1,000 feet long. The turning basin is intended to allow for the boats, the Devon boats, to both park and turn there. Go ahead, Lee. We want this to transition to feel easy, so the idea is to create a sawtooth-type walking path that is lined on both sides with a water feature. The water will flow along the slope of the sidewalk, and it'll be pumped back up to the canal. We're going to use water in the canal to do this in lieu of the river for various reasons, but the river fluctuates, as you know, a lot more than the canal. We are also connecting the other pathways that exist out there to both tie to the existing parking lot south of Bass Pro and to tie to the existing trail system that goes up through the Zone G area. Kind of zooming in on these special effects. Go ahead, Lee. The pedestrian connection, as I talked about, it'll be integrated with water and lights. The lighting is, we're anticipating using LED lighting to provide both color and brightness to really cause this to draw the attention of the boat travelers. There's a grass-sloped area that we're proposing that will cause a focus to the existing land run statues. And then we are proposing as part of this contract to do an alternate bid for elevators and stairs. We're not required to have these under the ADA, but it's desired to both provide that elevator and the stairwell. It currently is not in the budget, but we're hoping with good bid prices we might be able to work this in. As I mentioned, the parking area connection, and then signage leaving this canal area, entering the Boathouse Row area. Now on the south end, similar attractions. The pedestrian bridge will connect the existing trail system. It'll have to slope up considerably to allow the boats to clear underneath it. We're going to put signage to go enter into the Bricktown Entertainment District. We're also proposing a second alternative, and that's another water feature, a waterfall type feature with lights, just to allow some additional attraction as the boats come under and through the bridge. It's a very long bridge structure. And then the lighting under the bridge, you can see the length of the bridge is about 300 feet, maybe a little longer. We're proposing some LED lighting that would be 24/7 under that bridge, both, again, to provide color and to make it a very people-friendly place. And the various lighting fixtures that we're looking at would allow for a certain view from the boat's perspective and then a different view from the pedestrian perspective. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Mr. Johnson, from this presentation, it would appear that the existing river basin and the canal basin, they seem to be connected. Are they physically connected? I mean, are those waters, do they?
The existing river
Yes.
here will
Yes.
be connected, and the Devon boats will be allowed to come up to here. And this will be the new turning basin. These waters are not connected, only visually.
Okay, tell me how you bridge that 19-foot gap between the elevations.
The walkway. You can't take a boat up here. You'll have to disembark the Devon boats,
Okay,
and you can walk up into here and get on a canal boat.
I see. So there is no physical connection.
That's correct. It'll just appear, it's a visual connection. And we're anticipating providing space in the elevator building to allow for a ticket booth to be installed there.
I see. I see.
Yes, sir.
I have just over here, you say the Devon boats will be going up there?
Yes, the Devon cruisers will be able to go on up and turn around up in here.
Well, you're losing me again. If the Devon boats are going to be able to get out of the river and get into the canal,
No,
they're not.
the canal stops here.
Okay.
You can see but the scale difference, that turnaround versus that turnaround.
Oh, okay.
The canal stops here, so the water in the canal physically stops here. It'll appear like the water's running down into here, that 19 feet,
All right.
but this will be 19 feet lower than that elevation right there. So the Devon boats will come up from the river under the bridge on I-40 and be 19 feet lower here than they are here. And so you have to get off the boat to walk up into the Bricktown and the canal area.
I see.
Well, there are certain there are kayaks and paddle boats that are permitted on the river. Those will be able to come in here.
Are there going to be any pumps to move the water from one elevation to the other?
Yes. We're going to have a series of pumps that will provide the image of the water flowing down the length of the walkway as you walk down, and it'll recycle up into the canal water.
I see.
I don't know if you can answer this, or we might need Paul, but I just want to make sure that all the improvements we're doing, those are on park property, right? Since we're using park proposition money. Does
I
anybody-
think I can answer that. That is correct.
Okay.
Any other questions concerning this item? Any observations or questions for the engineer?
Just wonder how wide that channel across the highway is, the interstate.
This bridge,
Yeah, like there.
it's about 300 feet.
Oh, so you've got plenty of room for boats to come.
Yeah, it'll be a long tunnel.
Any questions, any more questions concerning this? Hearing none, I would entertain a motion to approve this item. We have a motion, have a second. All in favor? Aye. The item is approved, and again, thank you.
All right, item number B. This is requesting $90,417 in 1995 general obligation funds for Opposition 1 streets unlisted. We are paying back MFA funds. Basically, the project was Eastern Avenue from Southeast 15th to Southeast 29th Street. We completed the project in May 2004, and there's no documentation or contract between us and MFA. So there was 8 projects that the MFA was not paid back, and 3 of them was paid back so far, and 5 of them are remaining to be paid back. To set a rule for ourselves, the city manager's office have directed us that we should follow that 3-year statutory rule also on the MFA payback money. So we are continuing with that. This will be paying the $90,417 for this project, and the item number C will also pay another 2 projects. And after these are paid, we have 3 remaining that we will be coming back to you for allocation of fund back to the MFA.
Okay, as an item of clarification, would you tell myself and the board who MFA is and what their connection is to this?
Yes, it's Oklahoma City Municipal Facilities Trust, that for us to use the funds on bond projects that we don't have full funding, we can use the trust fund in order to design, purchase right-of-way, or clear utilities, so we can, when we sell the bonds, we'll be able to go and purchase the plans, basically, pay that back, and then fully fund the project to build.
Okay.
This is a mechanism for us to do that.
Is this, it appears to be a bridge financing kind of arrangement. Is that what's done here? Go ahead.
Yeah, the OCMFA, like Mr. Lasani was discussing, it allows us to go ahead and go out and do the engineering, maybe acquire the right-of-way before the bonds are actually sold. So we have all that work done. We sell the bonds, and then we can immediately go out and award the contract and begin the construction. So, yes, it kind of helps us be able to get started sooner on a project than having to wait till the bonds are sold. And what we've got here are a few projects where, as part of an internal audit, we discovered that there was a few projects we still needed to go back and reimburse the funds on, and that's what this is authorizing those reimbursements.
I see.
You know, I may add, you know, I wasn't here when this happened, but, you know, among the hundreds of the projects we do, well, you know, several got, you know, basically did not pay back, but, you know, we are catching it. The audit, you know, audit was performed, and we are paying those back to MF.
This bed was on fire when he got in it. That's what he said.
Just to add a little bit further clarification to this issue, I was here, so I'm going to give you just a small bit of history. There were a certain number of projects, the 8 projects that Ahmad was referring to, that were both in the 1995 and the 2000 GO bond authorization. As Public Works started to complete all the projects, we made the decision, Public Works did, that the first priority on the use of the bond funds was to complete the projects as they were listed in the bond proposition. That was, in our opinion, that was the first call on the bond funds. So we made the decision internally to delay the reimbursement of funds back to the MFA for the purchase of the engineering plans to ensure that we would have sufficient bond funds available to complete the listed projects, okay? So that was a decision that Public Works made unilaterally, internally. When the audit was done, that was published back in May of 2005, the city auditors did not necessarily agree with that. They admonished us for making that decision internally and not consulting with the Office of Management and Budget, the Finance Department, or the City Manager's Office prior to making our unilateral decision to delay the reimbursement. So as a result of that audit that came out in 2005, we were instructed, there was a finding, that's what you have in audits, you have findings that say, we found this to be true, Public Works shouldn't have made that decision unilaterally. They should have consulted with the Finance Department and the City Manager's Office, and a plan should have been formulated to allow for both the reimbursement of the advanced engineering funds to the OCMFA and completion of the remaining bond projects. So this is a step that we're taking, albeit several years later, to try to complete the recommendation that was in that audit in 2005 and again in the follow-up audit that was just completed in April of 2011. And as Ahmad said, after this action is completed both on item B and C, we'll have 3 projects remaining that we'll probably have to come back and ask you for those funds as we find available bond funds to complete once and for all that reimbursement to the OCMFA so they are whole and there's not a debt that they still need to get from the bond funds. So that's where we're at.
Okay. Do you have an estimate of what the remaining debt to the MFA will be?
I do. It's
if and when we approve these items?
We anticipate the remaining projects to total about $56,000 for all 3 projects.
So fairly small
So
amount.
it's a fairly small
considering.
amount, but it's just a matter of, as projects get completed, we take those remaining balances, and we've been working on this for a number of months. We finally have enough money pulled together to address these 2 projects that you see in this item and the following item, and as more projects get completed and we find bond funds to pay back that remaining $56,000, then we'll come back to you and say, you know, here we are again. We'd like to complete this process and close out that recommendation that was in the audit. So. That's correct. We are still utilizing the OCMFA for advanced engineering, but now that we've been advised that we need to pay those funds back in a much more timely manner, we're doing so.
So there will be more reimbursements to CMFA, but it'll be at the time of the...
At the time, our practice always was, at the time the final plans were approved, the bond funds would purchase the plans from the trust and reimburse them in the entirety for the funds that were up-fronted, okay? On these handful of projects, when we started looking at our balances, we said, well, we want to make sure we've got enough funds to build the projects, so let's not reimburse the trust at this time. Let's wait. And that's kind of, that was not a good thing, but that's what kind of brought us to where we are today, where we're trying to pay off those final projects and close that recommendation in the audit.
And where does the trust get its funds?
It gets its funds from a number of different sources, some transfers from the general fund. Mike might be able to speak a little bit more about, what the funding sources are from the MFA.
The majority was transferred from the general fund to the trust to allow for these advanced purchases, such. Otherwise, it earns, interest on the money that it does have in its accounts, and that's pretty much it.
I would request, as we consider this item, that we have someone from the finance department come in and visit with us and tell us about what trusts, municipal trusts, can do legally that the city cannot do. As I recall, and this was a very long time ago, a trust can incur debt in a different fashion than the city can incur debt. So a trust can borrow money and use that as a financing mechanism where the city could not under certain circumstances. So not being a lawyer or really remembering how that works now, I would request that we be given an informational item to explain to us what these trusts do, what they can do legally, and how they operate.
Would you like something in writing by the next meeting that explains how, why this procedure came about?
That would be nice, but I would like to have someone who can answer the questions that might arise as we
Well, I can
hear
answer
that.
the questions for you. A trust is a separate legal entity from the city, so the OCMFA is not the city. The OCMFA can incur debt, borrow money. The city of Oklahoma City cannot do that under the state constitution without a vote of the people. This situation came about because the Attorney General of the state of Oklahoma has said in an old opinion that we cannot take bond funds until we have the full pot of money for that entire project and spend those on bits and pieces, the incidental, like the A&E. Because to use your bond funds, you have to come out with some kind of street, bridge, or public utility. A&E plans are not a street, bridge, or public utility, and that's the constitutional mandate that we have. So the AG said, and a situation occurred where some cities were using a lot of bond funds. They were paying a lot of engineers. They had a bunch of plans and specs that they were doing nothing with, and the bond projects weren't getting completed. And the AG came in at that point and said, this is not allowable. So we've advised Public Works, my office, the city attorney's office, that you can't just take a portion of your bond funds and use them for A&E until you have your project completely funded. It's a problem because you only have, once you sell those bonds, there are some federal restrictions. Those bonds and the interest we earn are tax exempt, but if we don't get a project completed within a certain time frame, which is 3 years from selling the bonds, then we are subject to having to pay taxes on all those. It's called an arbitrage penalty, and I know very little about that, but our bond counsel does. So if we fund the project in full, like the Attorney General says to do, and spend a little for A&E, it takes, several months, doesn't it, Paul, or even a year to do A&E. Then you only have 2 years left to do construction, which in a lot of big projects is not enough. So what we needed was some kind of mechanism to get some funding so that we, some advanced funding so that we didn't have to take money out of our bond funds. And many, many years ago, using the OCMFA, one of our trusts, to do that, somebody came up with that. Does that help at all?
It helps a lot. It helps me, and I hope that it helps my fellow members to understand what it is we're doing here with the payback of funds that we have borrowed from Municipal Finance Authority and why we would do such a thing.
The only question I have, I'm sorry.
I was going to say, it's a system that has worked very, very well for us, and it has allowed us to get engineering done prior to receipt of the bond funds, and this was just a situation where Public Works, made a decision in and of themselves that they probably shouldn't have made, and now we're trying to, rectify the situation and get that audit recommendation closed out. So.
And our bond counsel is fully aware of what we're doing and how we're doing it and has approved this procedure. We've also, in the meantime, adopted another procedure that goes through the city manager's office and city council to get advanced funding. So we just have all these different rules, and sometimes they conflict with each other and make it really hard administratively to get things done. And so we have to get creative so that we can get stuff done, not be subject to arbitrage penalties. Yeah, I'm sorry.
I can't remember us paying back this fund before. I'm sure we have, but have we done it in recent times?
I know we have done it through council. I don't know if we haven't done it through here. Can somebody tell me, I know that we have a 3-year statute of limitations on an implied contract, and that is what Mr. Jordan had used to say that's how far back you can go to pay back the MFA, but I'm not sure when, it says the 3-year rule, but I don't know when that's supposed to have started, and I mean it's 2011 now, and this was started in 04. Or we got the advanced funding in 04.
Well, as I said previously, this issue first came to light, this outstanding debt that the bonds owe to the MFA came to light when they did the first audit back in 05, okay? And I believe that there was not a date specific or a project timeline milestone that would apply to each of these projects. It was as of some date in 2005 that actually started the 3-year period, and if a project had been completed prior to, or at least or more than 3 years prior to 2005, so I guess roughly 2002, those projects were ineligible to be paid back, but anything that was still active or came after that fell into the category of projects that that showed up on the list and that we're having to pay back to the MFA.
And I would still request that we have memorialize a statement of some kind or a white paper or report that tells us and future members of this body how public trusts work and what the relationships are to our construction projects and how it expedites the use of this mechanism, expedites what the city might not get done in a timely fashion. We're going to have new members. We're going to have a new member next week at our next meeting, and I think it would be well to have something that's preparatory for members to know about, as opposed to saying, well, the MFA, well, everybody doesn't know what that is, and and I would appreciate if that would be done.
I'll prepare something for
Okay,
next meeting.
all right. Thank you. Proceed, sir.
Yes. Should I cover the other, the third item?
Well, there was a third item, C.
Yes.
These two items weren't done together, were they?
No, they're not together, but the explanation is the same.
Okay. I'd entertain a motion for item B. Have a motion? Have a motion? Have a second? All in favor? Say aye. Okay. And we'll proceed to item.
Item C. This is for two projects. Locations were Southwest 2nd Street from Robinson to E.K. Gaylord Boulevard, and Southwest 3rd Street from Broadway to E.K. Gaylord Boulevard. The Southwest 2nd was basically the location that the arena was going to go, so that project basically was unbuildable. So this was from the 1976 general obligation bond. So the first project was surplus and used for other projects in 1976 bond. So this request is to pay those MFA monies back. The total is $30,491. Any
Okay,
questions?
This item is very similar to the last one. I'll entertain a motion to approve such an item. Have a motion. Have a second. All in favor? Aye. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. On item 4, it merely notifies us that we're going to have a new member who is not present today, and we'll welcome him at our next regularly scheduled meeting. And is there any new business to appear before this committee? Items from committee members? No concerns. Citizens to be heard? Hearing none. We are adjourned. What? Yes. Okay. Sure. Right, and that's probably where that should be. This should be in the future, but I thought it would be up to everyone's advantage to